What is up, everybody? Welcome to Livestream. Woo! I was so distracted from jamming out to the music and looking at your comments, I almost missed the end of the song. That would be unacceptable, unprofessional, but not up to my standards, which are, as you know, extremely high. That was for all you people out there who, I don't know, I'm just another that drives people crazy, so I just want to do it. Some people would not want to do the things that drive people crazy, but I'm not one of those people. I'll do it once. I won't do it again, probably. In case you're wondering. Spindrift. Spindrift. Of all the fruity seltzer drinks, I think Spindrift are the best these days. They have a small amount of real squeezed fruit in them. It's a very small amount. They'll be like, hey, in this whole case of drinks, there's like a quarter of a lime. And that's apparently more fruit juice than any other fruity seltzer drink has. Because they just taste, especially the blood orange tangerine, solid, and the pineapple, solid. Don't buy one of the multi-packs with like the lemon, lime, and some other third lame flavor. Lemon, lime, The ones you can't get in the multi-packs, that's okay, because you want more of them anyway. Those are the good ones. Spindrift. Spindrift, sponsor me. Yeah. Here's what we're going to do. Hold on. There we go. What? I can't figure out if my rug is part of my background. Okay. We're going to answer your questions. As soon as I get done bullshitting, we're going to answer your questions. I'm going to answer questions that you ask here in the YouTube chat. I'm going to answer questions that you ask here in the Discord. Oh, yeah. This is a cool guy zone. Cool guys only. That's the Discord server. They're cool guys. And because they're cool guys, they get to be on my Discord server. And you too can be a cool guy for the low, low price of $2. For $2, you can join join my Patreon. You could pay more if you want to. That's up to you. You could be one of us, one of them. Don't they look like the kind of people? Yeah, they get to be on my Discord server. They're my patrons. Thank you, patrons. Thank you for making it possible for me to avoid doing something I'm bad at for all these years. Yeah. And if you really want to, you can hit the $ and leave a super chat. I will read the super chats a little later in the stream. Usually close to the half-hour mark, we start the super chat roundup. So if you want to ask a super chat, I'm not going to answer it immediately. That's not how the stream works. And if you can't ask a super chat, that's okay. I answer lots of questions. And if I don't get to your question, you can always email me. I'll tell you. So no worries there. But enough of that. Let's get to the questions that my good friend It's Blunty is queuing up here in the queue. You got your queuing finger ready to go, Blunty?
Yes.
Awesome. There was a question. I don't know if you queued it. He's asked, where did I get my shirt? Is it on the back of the shirt? Oh, wow. Well, that's interesting. This one does it not have a logo on it anywhere? No, it does. Here it is. You can just barely see it. I'll just bring the website. Oh, that was close. I was about a half inch away from this being a non-child friendly stream. The logo, the company, the URL is down here at the bottom. These are legitimately cool shirts, and this guy he must have sent me 10 different shirts, and like 8 of them are pretty cool, and I wear them regularly, which is a pretty good. So I may as well give him a plug. This is Rekd, Rekd.com, WREKD, Rekd.com. And has some pretty cool shirts, hats. Right? Come on. I love this one. So here's the actual do not eat. Yeah, it's a X-ray of a skeleton with quadcopter parts, a battery, and a prop, and a motor inside it. You know. Anyway, thank you to Rekd for sending me these shirts. Oh, God. Do I not have this one? I might. If I don't have this one, I'm going to buy it. A frickin' rainbow unicorn? Come on. Anyway, that's where the shirt came from. Little plug for Rekd there. Plenty. I know we don't usually do this, but when you make the clips for the Livestream clip channel, will you make a little clip out of Rekd and just do a little plug for them on the Livestream clips channel? They make cool shirts. Like, we could just shout them out because they do cool shit, right? I'm always like hesitant about that stuff because it's like, I don't know, are people gonna, yeah, who cares? Anyway. All right, let's answer questions. Let's get down. This is what we're here for. You're not here to listen to me just babble. Are you? Maybe you are. Can you describe what a desync is? I've seen people wreck because of it, But what am I accidentally doing right to avoid it from happening? Okay, here's what a desync is in reality. And I want to say that a lot of the times when people say, "Oh, I had a desync," they didn't have a desync. They had they had a symptom that is similar to what might have happened if you had a desync, and so then they just blame it and they call it a desync. If you've got an ESC and it's driving a brushless motor, there's a process called commutation. And the commutation process, let me actually pull up an animation. So there's a process called commutation, and in this brushless motor, so this motor's a little different because it's an in runner, not an out runner, but it's okay. The principle's the same. We have these stator poles, and they're wrapped with wire, and when current flows through the wire, they become magnetized, okay? And there are 3 poles, okay? And what's going to happen is that the ESC is going to push current into the wire to magnetize the poles in a sequence. And do you see that we've got these permanent magnets here, positive and negative, and by selectively magnetizing the poles, we can continue pulling and pushing the shaft in a circle. But we have to do the commutation exactly right, so that at this point in time, one of these poles is pulling on the permanent magnet, one is pushing it. And then as the stator rotates, or as the shaft rotates, we reverse the current and we move we change which pole is being energized, so that we continue to sort of pull it in a circle. The analogy I like to make is, if you think about those like merry-go-rounds, like at a children's playground, where you grab the merry-go-round and you pull it and you whip it and it starts spinning, and it's spinning in a circle, and you catch it and you grab it and you whip it again, right? Right? You have to stick your arm out. You have to grab that pole just as it approaches you, and then you have to whip it by. If you were to just stick your arm out and lock out your arm, the merry-go-round would hit your arm and you break your wrist or break your elbow, right? Okay? Or if you were to reach out and whip your arm, but you didn't grab the pole because you didn't time it right, you would just go, and nothing would happen, okay? So in order to make a brushless motor spin, a very precise and it's not complicated, but the timing has to be exactly right, that as the motor rotates, which of the phases of the motor is energized in what way needs to be managed with very, very precise timing. And that's like what an ESC does. That's all an ESC does, is manipulate that timing to make the motor spin faster or slower. So a desync happens when the timing of the ESC's commutation is incorrect, and the ESC energizes the motor in the wrong way, such that instead of pulling on the magnet, it pushes on the magnet, and the motor, well, it loses synchronization. And then the ESC can no longer correctly commutate the motor, and the motor stops spinning, and then your quadcopter falls out of the air. Now, what could cause a desync to happen? Well, that's a deep topic, and I'm not even sure I would do a good job causing it. A lot of times it's damage to the motor, or like one of the things that can cause a desync is if you have like an ultra high kV motor. So the motor is spinning at this ridiculously high RPM, and the ESC commutation just kind of can't keep up, and the ESC timing gets off. Another thing that can happen is if the motor changes speed too quickly, and it gets out of sync with the ESC. And a lot of times there's just it's damage to the ESC or damage to the motor that causes a desync. But here's the thing that people get wrong about desyncs. Anytime a quadcopter just goes and falls out of the air, people go, aha, you had a desync. And that's not right. Right? Because technically I guess you lost synchronization. But if you smoked your motor because you drew too much current, you smoked the windings, and it fell out of the air because you burned the motor, technically, yes, you lost synchronization, but that's not like a desync in the classical sense. You have a smoked motor. So there's lots of things that can cause your quadcopter to fall out of the air, and people always want to call it a desync. But a desync is a specific miscommunication between the ESC and the motor, in my opinion, and so not everything that causes your quad to fall out of the air is a desync. Why are you not having desyncs was the second part of your question. You guys didn't see the did you see the animation at all? Blunty, did I switch to the screen showing the did I just talk?
Saw it.
Oh, I did. So I switched back. I forgot that I had switched back because I looked over and it was on my face, and I was like, did they see the animation? If you saw it, they saw it. Okay, good. Why are you not getting desyncs? Your equipment is working as designed. Desyncs shouldn't happen. So you have the correct motors. They're not damaged. You have the correct ESC. It's not damaged. There you go. Good for you. Excuse me. I don't have a better answer than that. Can the ESC recover from a desync in the air? Yeah, so what happens when the desync occurs is that the ESC will enter a process called blind commutation. And again, this is really on the edge of what I actually know how to talk about. So I think you should know that I'm kind of like making some of this up. But blind commutation, normally what the ESC does is it is listening to, it can sense the position of the magnets relative to the stator, and it uses that to do its timing. And when a desync happens, it's not able to do that, and so it does what's called blind commutation, where it tries to commutate the motor without knowing the motor's position, and tries to kind of sync back up again, right? And if it succeeds at that, then you'll just get a little stutter, and then you'll keep flying. But if it fails at that, then you'll death roll. Phantom FPV, good to see you. All right. Good to see you, Phantom. What, I'm trying to go back. Eric Toft. Okay, gotcha. Eric Toft in the Discord has come up with what he's claiming might be a bug in Betaflight 451. Blinking OSD elements on WTFOS and Vista disappear when they blink instead of blinking. Oh, it's pretty freaking weird. I would say, this is as good a time as any to show you guys. The Betaflight devs don't want me to show you this. As good a time as any to show you guys that if you go to the Betaflight GitHub repo, so there we go, you can report an issue. There we go. There's the URL. Oh, shoot. Here are all the open issues for Betaflight right now, and an issue is basically a bug report. It could be other things, but... So if you think you've got a reproducible bug in Betaflight, you go here, you hit New Issue. Why am I not logged into GitHub? Okay. You go New Issue, and then you choose, this would be a bug report. Get started. And then you fill it out. Please, 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 do not waste the dev's time with things that are not Betaflight bugs. You know? Like, I can't get my receiver to work. Can you help me? I swear I'm not making this up. People do this. It's a waste of time for the devs to have. That's not their job, is to do that. But if, like Iric, you think you may have found a reproducible bug in Betaflight, this is the way to report it. So, just in case you need to know that. When is more HTX content coming? Yes, I'm working on that this week. I'm recording more episodes this week. They will probably come out by the beginning of next week. I understand that when I start a series like this and then there's a break in the content. It can be, for people who are into it, it can be a little difficult. I tried to make sure that when I released the playlist, I had a good block of content ready to go. I knew that there would be a delay in recording more because that's always how it is. But I am going to record some more this week and keep that going. I definitely will not let that just sort of peter off and die. I promise. I'm so serious about getting that playlist to what I think is a really solid, like, it's probably not going to be everything in HTX because that would be hundreds of videos, but like getting it to what I think is a solid stopping point where we've reached a really good foundation of knowledge about HTX, and obviously we're not there yet. I'm going to be working on that this week and releasing those videos probably next week. But yeah, I appreciate your interest. Subi, thank you for being a patron, Subi. What are some good brands to buy 2200 lipos from? I've been looking at the Ovonic, which has very low C rating, as well as Z, which don't look promising. I'm going to guess if you're buying 2200 lipos, are you doing ProSpec? ProSpec. Because I think ProSpec uses 2200 lipos. Believe. Am I right about that? Specs. Maybe you're not. Maybe you just coincidentally wanted it. 22. Come on. Yeah, 2200 or less. What I would do, like, if I wanted to buy one today, I would go to fly533.com. Fly533.com. And batteries. They have a ProSpec battery here. Budget 6S 2200 ProSpec legal battery. $44.99. And you may say, well, it's only 45C. And that's true. But bear in mind that the bigger the battery is, the more amps you get for the same C rating. Because the formula for C rating is amp hours. So 2200 is 2.2 amp hours times C rating. So that is 99 amps. So by comparison, if I were to take a 1100 milliamp hour 90C battery, that would be 1.1 amps times 90C, that's 99 amps. Now, if I were to hand you an 1100 milliamp hour 90C battery, you probably would say, I'd rather have 100C or 120C, but 90C is okay. That would be my opinion. 90C, 80, 90C is about the minimum that I'd want for like a 5-inch drone. So you look at a 45C 2200 and you go, 45C? Are you kidding me? That's not enough. But they have the same amp rating because the 2200 is a bigger pack. The bigger the battery, the lower the C rating can be, and the lower the C rating usually is. Okay, so 2200, I would get the 533 budget battery just because I'm really confident that, like, $45, I don't know, is that a good price for that battery? I don't know, I haven't cross-shopped any 2200s, but, like, I would be confident that 533 and Evan Turner, that this is a, like, decent battery for the money, even if it's not necessarily the cheapest. And I think that's probably just because I have trust in Evan and trust in his company. Until he betrays that trust. And then I'll burn him. I'll burn him to the ground. No. As long as we're talking about 533, can I do a little plug? And I have no stake in this plug. Like, I'm not sponsored or anything. He's not paying me to do this. I just think what he's doing is really cool. 533 has started a new service called the FPV Pit Stop. And the way the FPV Pit Stop works is you sign up with a subscription. So it's a subscription program, not a one-time payment. Interesting. Some people will like that. Some people may wish it was a one-time. You can always just cancel the subscription. I don't know. It's up to you. And then you get one-on-one help via phone. You can send your quadcopter in and they will fix it for you. And you get discounts on buying stuff from 533. Don't waste hours searching. Schedule one-on-one calls with a professional builder. Start flying sooner. Blunty, have you heard about this? I ask you because I know you and I both do one-on-one calls some of the time. So we probably have some insight into this business model.
No, I've never heard of this.
Oh,
but
I'm so excited right now.
The fact that they're accepting drones for repair is insane, and I hope it goes well for them, but that sounds horrible. Right.
Yeah, I talked to Evan at a race I went to this weekend. It's a little informal Knoxville race. And he said, that he acknowledged that one of the challenges was going to be that they're going to get quadcopters from people, and they're going to have oddball parts that they then need to procure or get approval for a substitution. I was like, yep. Check out their pricing, Blunty. See what you think. Bronze level. One-on-one. By the way, the one-on-one calls are limited to 20 minutes at a time. 20 minutes at a time. One-on-one call with FPV expert, bronze level. Problem solve guarantee. I guess that means like we guarantee we'll solve your problem or you don't pay, or I don't know what. I'm not sure I know the exact nature of the problem solve. Problem solve guarantee. Doesn't actually... There's a terms. Actually, there's a terms of service that you can click on. It probably has that detail. Store discount. Okay, fine. Drone repair with free shipping comes in at the silver level, $80 a month. And then drones per month. Is that drones that you want to buy from them? I'm not sure what...
repaired drones. Like you can send it in 4 times a month.
Oh, okay. You can send in up to 4 drones a month to be repaired. So like here's my concern. And I've expressed this idea to Evan as well, so I don't want anybody to think I'm talking out of turn. And he essentially said, yeah, we'll see how it goes. Maybe it won't work. We think it's cool and we want to try it. And but here's my concern. $80 a month. Okay? They're going to get one 20-minute phone call. Okay.
Per day.
There's no limit. Is it per day? I don't think there's a limit on the number of calls.
Yeah, connect with an expert up to once daily. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So it sounds like 3 days of the week. You get 3 calls a week, basically.
So that's 12 calls in a month, roughly.
Correct. And they're 20 minutes.
Okay.
That's what you said. I don't know if that's correct. The website doesn't say that. But
it's what I believe that's the case. I think that's the case.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, quick 20-minute sessions.
So that's 4 hours. So most people aren't going to call every day. Most people are going to call 1 or 2 times, maybe 3 times. Okay? But theoretically, someone could use up to 4 hours of your time a month if they took every day, every call, 4 hours. So you're down to $20 an hour as your take. Drone repair with free shipping for a month. I mean, that's at least 2 hours. Probably more, because you're going to get the drone, you're going to evaluate the drone, you're going to decide what you need to do to fix it. You're going to contact the customer and get approval. They're going to have some oddball VTX. You're going to be like, can I swap you out to this other VTX? This is, I don't know. It feels to me like a lot of times with subscription programs like this, the assumption is that a large portion of the subscribers aren't going to fully utilize the platform, right? So you charge less than it seems like you should because most people aren't fully utilizing it. It seems to me like most people who sign up for this are going to use a lot of it. And it seems like it's not going to take very many of those people who want to call you every freaking day to just eat your profits. But I guess we'll see. If no one tries it, we'll never know. And maybe the other thing is, this is the kind of thing where someone will do it and they'll realize it's not working, and then they'll do it a different way, and they'll realize it's not working, and then eventually they'll figure out a way to make it work, and that would be badass. Because this is a service that a lot of people want to exist. I wonder if it would be better as a one, like if you could say for $20 $25 for $20. $20 for a 20-minute call. That's $60 an hour. That's more than fair. That's plenty of money to pay some tech a fair wage to be on the phone and to take a little bit of profit to run your business. If it was $20 for 20 minutes on the phone, that I feel like that's sustainable. And if someone was to start a service where we'll fix your drone for you if you mail it in, the actual profitability price is probably higher than a lot of people want to pay, but running an unprofitable business, it's unsustainable. So there's no point in it unless you're just wealthy and want to donate your time, service money to the community, in which case more power to you. I don't know about the subscription model. Anyway, now you know it exists. It's out there. If you're like, well, damn, that's exactly what I need. FPV Pit Stop. Okay. Hey, Joshua, have you figured out the difference between current and power? I assume SIGTERM here is referring to some conversation I had once upon a time or some verbal goof that I had in a video where I mixed up power and current. Obviously, current is amps, power is watts. Watts equals volts times amps. I know the difference. You're a dork. I know you didn't cue that one because you thought it was a waste of our time for me to respond to it, but I'm much more petty than you, Blunty. Let's see, one more. Is there any point in trying to... Oh, go ahead, Blunty.
Sorry, I feel like we should mention that hidden down at the bottom of this, there is a free trial of FPV Pit Stop.
What?
Click the first FAQ.
7-day free trial, schedule a call immediately. They really want to push this. There you go.
So if you need to try Pit Stop, you can do that for free. So go do that.
I mean, then after 7 days, you're automatically charged, right? I assume.
Presumably, but I mean, like anything, you probably could cancel, right? I would assume.
Yeah. 2 to 4 business days. This is not, my gut feeling, and I don't want to curse it, but my gut feeling is there's no way they're charging enough money for what they're actually intending to do. There's no way they're going to be profitable on their labor. It's not possible.
Another piece of information, the second Q&A, or the second FAQ, says booking is available with experts Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 1 to 4 p.m. Eastern, so there's only a 3-hour window. So there's a good chance that when 30, 40 people sign up to this, maybe 100, you can't get the spots you're looking for. You're going to have to book ahead of time and get scheduled out, and you're not going to be able to do 12 appointments a month because there's literally not space for that.
That's interesting. I mean, if you have 3 hours, that's 12 slots times 12 days a month. That's 144 slots a month, roughly, because I know there's not exactly 4 weeks in a month. That's roughly 144 slots a month. And then that's it. You can't have any more than that if we are 100% booked. Of course, they could always extend the hours. Interesting.
Interesting to know. It is time limited. There is a free trial, so some extra information.
Check it out. Is there any point to a sub 255-inch? Yeah. You need to check out the Umagod 250. 250. You got to spell it like 50 Cent. Umagod's 250. It is the best sub 250 5-inch. Now, I will say, you can even buy a bind and fly one if you really want to. Boom. Bind and fly, sub 250. Ready to go. I will say, there are significant drawbacks to a sub 250 5-inch. Mostly in terms of durability. But there are advantages that I didn't expect. I did a review of the 250. This was 3 years ago, so understand that a lot of this information is out of date. But my general... here's the one you want. Oh my God, 250 changed my mind about sub 250 gram 5-inch. That's the video you want. Excuse me. You should check this out. And the idea that sub 255 inch flies a certain way is still true even 3 years later. Okay, let's do super chats. It's been long enough. Let's do super chats. We've only got 2 super chats. Great. If you're interested in having me read your question right now, then leave a super chat. I'm going to read super chats until I've read them all. Currently, there are 2, so that won't take very long. But if you leave a super chat, I'll read it right now. What more could you ask for? Woonex, thank you for a $5 super chat. I've been flying long range, but I have a trip planned to do some mountain surfing. How much milliamp hours can I use on the flight up versus down? 60-40, 70-30? I can't give you that number. I don't know. It depends on a lot of factors. I'm not sure I could generalize it. It's possible that a pilot who's done a lot more mountain surfing than I have. Do you see me doing a lot of mountain surfing? No. It's possible that a pilot who does a lot more mountain surfing than me could generalize it, but I can't. You are correct that it's not going to be 50-50. You're going to use a lot more power climbing than you are descending. And I would guess that it's maybe 70-30 to 80-20, because you use a lot less power descending. But it depends a lot on your throttle position. And so if you climb gently and then you're cruising, bombing down the mountain, right? Well, the fact that you're going downhill is helping, but you could be using a similar amount of power. It really depends on where your throttle's at, more than anything else. So I don't know. Can't answer that one. And I think there's going to be a lot of variability depending on how you fly on the way down versus the way up. Here's another one from Woonex, a $5 super chat. It feels like movements around center stick are more than I actually want for high precision. Is this a get good moment or would Expo help? Well, look, I don't know what your rates currently are, so I can't really comment on them. But yeah, Expo is exactly what you use when the movements around center stick are too precise or too abrupt. So either reduce your rates entirely, which will give you more precision around the whole stick, or add some expo, which will give you more precision around the center stick. That's the right thing to do. Thank you, Exiled FPV, for a $5 super chat. Why are thumbers generally better looking than pinchers? Robocopter FPV. I actually have face blindness. I don't talk about it a lot, but I am unable to see whether people are good looking or not. So I just walk through a world where everyone is equally unattractive or attractive. It's just like shades of gray. So if I'm going to have to take your word for it that thumbers are generally better looking than pinchers, I will say, though, people who see human beauty seems like it's subjective. And that someone will look at a person and think they're beautiful, and another person will look at that person and not find them particularly interesting or attractive. And that same person will look at this other person and find them beautiful, and vice versa. So in as much as beauty is subjective, you're really telling on yourself. You, Robocopter FPV, apparently have a thing for thumbers. But somewhere out there's someone who has a thing for pinchers. And as long as we all find someone to love, that's what matters in this life. But as Cyclimbo points out, the best-looking people are my patrons in the Discord.
So Skydozer points out there is one objectively attractive person, that's your wife.
Oh, yeah, no,
right?
Objective. She's the best. Yeah. I mean, you better not say she's hot, or we'll have to fight. Because I'm the only one who's allowed to be attracted to my wife, and I'm performing heteronormativity right now, and masculinity. Did I do okay? Did that work?
Yep.
Stone FPV, thank you for a $10 super chat, and thank you for the help the other day with my Vista OSD issue. 73 FPV says, I know you're a Mustang guy. Have you driven any Japanese cars? I drive an STI Stage 3, around the same HP as your Turbo 4, 340 or so. Your thoughts, sir? I haven't. So I owned a Jetta before I owned my Mustang, and I owned a Saturn Coupe before I owned my Jetta. And those are the 3 cars I've ever owned as an adult. When I got married, we became a 2-car family because my wife had a car as well. And so she has always had the sort of practical, she has the minivan, she has the SUV, she has the truck, whatever it is that she owns at any given time. I guess my Jetta was a little bit practical. But I never owned a Japanese performance car. I probably could, my Saturn wasn't exactly a performance car, although it was a coupe. I thought it was pretty cool. But I can't really say. I don't really have any strong opinions. If I were to get a Japanese car today, it'd be a Supra. Oh my God. I saw a Supra at a stoplight the other day. And I swear to God, I thought it was like a Bugatti or something. And I know it's not. I know that's like the front end of the modern Supra is so striking. I thought for a minute it was looking at like a supercar. Right? Come on. Look at that front end. I think it was lowered. I think he'd done some mods on it. It looked. And I actually, I followed him on the highway. I was like, what car is that? And then I was like, oh, it's a Supra. And now I was slightly less impressed, but I was still pretty impressed. If I were to get a Japanese car today, I think it'd be a Supra. And I know it's really a BMW. And that a lot of people think that that's a problem. But I think the Supra is a real interesting car. Good looking car. Yeah. Good driving car. I haven't looked into whether the 2024 or the 2025 have improved some of the things that people didn't like about the initial release. I'd have to do a little research. But it is a really striking car, and I like what they're doing with it. Anyway. I dove my quad into a pond, and after drying for 3 days, it runs fine, but the OSD displays low voltage land now. Yeah, your voltage sense circuit got damaged in the pond. There isn't really a great way around this. I will say that if you have an ESC that does ESC telemetry, you can try this, and you may not. Okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to go into the ports tab, and you're going to look and see if you have ESC sensor input for any of your UARTs. And if you do, that's good. If you don't, you're going to go look up your ESC. Here. You're going to go look up your ESC. And you're going to look at the pinout of your ESC. And what you want to look is you want to see if the ESC has a telemetry wire. Do you see that this ESC, it says Tele right here. Tele, T-E-L-E. If you're on mobile, the screen's probably too small, you can't read it. This ESC has telemetry output. Ha! Maybe your ESC supports telemetry and just you never set Betaflight up to do telemetry. But one way or another, you need to get telemetry from your ESC. And if your ESC doesn't have a telemetry output, and not all of them do, you're out of luck. You're done. But let's say that your ESC has telemetry. Well, in that case, you can go to the Power and Battery tab, and as your voltage meter source, normally you would have selected onboard ADC. That means your flight controller's onboard voltage sensor, except yours is broken because you crashed it in a lake. But if you have ESC telemetry, you can change this to ESC sensor, and you can get voltage from the ESC's voltage sensor, and if that works, that's the workaround. But if that doesn't work, you're screwed. Oh, I'm sorry, wrong time. Joseph Emmanuel asks, starting with analog, then planning to do digital. Shall I go for HD0 goggles or CATX Goggles X with the new patch box? What's your advice? The HD0 goggle is a better analog goggle than the Walksnail goggle. But I think that most typical FPV people will be happier in the long run with Walksnail than with HD0. Unless you're like heavy into racing. And then HD0 is the clear winner. So what I would say is decide which digital system, do your research, decide which digital system you'll be most happy with, Walksnail or HD0, and then get that goggle. Because even though the HD0 is a better analog goggle than the Walksnail, your plan is to eventually graduate out of that anyway, so you may as well get the digital system that you're going to graduate to. That's my advice. Any lens profile for the Session 5 in Gyroflow? I don't know about that, but guess what? You can make a lens profile, my friend. There's a tutorial for how to do it. I think Nurkula showed how to do it. The definitive Gyroflow tutorial. Lens calibration. Yeah. So Nurkula has a video. This is the definitive Gyroflow tutorial. And in this, it has instructions on lens calibration where you can create your own lens profile if the camera that you're using doesn't exist yet. And that's what you need to do. There it is, right there. Or maybe there's one already in there and you can't find it. Can you do a deep review on the Walksnail gimbal cam? I have the Walksnail gimbal. I haven't gotten around to messing with it yet. Maybe I will someday. I haven't yet. Okay, we're caught up on Super Chats. Let's go back to the regular chats. That didn't take long. Oh, we got one came in from Deuce FPV. I'll grab it. Can I get you to say welcome to HTX on my Mark II? Even though I downloaded it to my SD card from the JB Sound Pack, it doesn't say it on the initial startup. You probably, did you rename it correctly? Look, you got to rename the file. Here's why. On the SD card in the sounds folder, here's the Bardwell sound pack. Where is it? What's the name of the file? What's the startup file on HTX? There's a file. It's like welcome to open. The default file says welcome to OpenTX, and you have to rename the welcome to EdgeTX file. I can't remember what the name of the damn file is though. It's not welcome. What's the name of the startup file?
Hello.
Start. It's hello? Thanks, Blunty. I heard you say hello, and I thought for a minute it was you were a sound pack. Yeah, so you're going to learn something today. So whatever file you want to use, you need to rename it as hello.wave and put it in the system folder. Sounds en system. Okay? It needs to be renamed as hello.wave, and that's probably what you didn't do. Max Nachbauer wants to know 8S on a 5-inch or a 6 or 7-inch. What's better for speed? That's a tough one. Generally, I think that a larger prop is going to make more thrust and give you more speed. I think that's usually what's going to turn out to be true. It's possible that if you go to too big of a prop, you'll be over-propping the motor and you won't make as much RPM. And going to a smaller prop will give you more RPM and more speed. But assuming you have spec'd everything correctly, the larger prop is going to make more thrust and give you more speed. Does the Walksnail companion app work with the Goggles L? Do the Goggles L have the Wi-Fi module of the Goggles X? I don't know about that. Goggles L. Walksnail Goggles L. I don't think they do. They don't. There's no hit for Wi-Fi on the Goggles L product page. I would guess no. I'm looking at the specs here. They don't mention Wi-Fi. So I'm going to say no, but it's a provisional no. I don't know for sure. What would be a good starter setup for someone that learned flying on mode 3? I mean, Mr. Dals, any HTX radio can be set to mode 3. I'm not going to comment on my moral judgments about your weird, perverted choice of flight mode. But you know, that's between you and your priest. But any HTX radio can do it. Igor Volansky wants to know, will I read patrons' chat from Discord? Igor, Blunty is queuing questions both from Discord and from YouTube. So you can see here in the queue, we have questions from both. And in fact, the very next one from Jeff in Milwaukee is a Discord question. Two of my Walksnail HD video transmitters have suddenly showed weak signal quality to the point of red screen at minus 100 meters line of sight. The other two are fine. I don't think I've changed anything, and I'm not sure what to check. The number one thing I would check there is the antenna. If you suddenly have weak range on some VTXs but not others, like if you suddenly had weak range on all your VTXs, I would suspect the goggles, right? Because that's the common link. What are the chances that all your VTXs just went bad? But if you suddenly have bad signal quality on two VTXs and not any others, I would suspect that they had broken antennas, just because that's the normal, like the most likely thing. Like that would cause that. Well done, Blunty. What's a good frame for a 7-inch drone? Asks Danielle Skelsey. I have had good results with the GepRC Mark V 7-inch. The iFlight Chimera 7-inch is also good, although I think it's a little too... The iFlight Chimera frame is made for the iFlight electronics that come in the iFlight Bind and Fly, and I don't think it's quite as versatile as something like the Mark V. Like, you're going to have to be very selective about what electronics you put in the Chimera. So if you leave the side plates off, you'll get a little bit more room on the Chimera. I probably wouldn't necessarily pick it for a Bind and Fly, or for a self-build, though. The TBS Source 1 is an open source 7-inch. It's quite good. The GepRC Moz 2.7 is good. Yeah, Warbird, agree with you there. The Apex has a 7-inch, and the Apex is a good frame. How much of a difference does propeller pitch make? A big difference. Gee whiz. Big difference. Propeller pitch, the steeper the pitch of the propeller, the more thrust the propeller will make, assuming the right conditions are met. In general, you can assume that if a quadcopter is hovering, it is probably going to be more efficient with a lower pitch prop. If you think about it, if I had a 90 degrees is, if I had almost a 90-degree pitch on my prop and the quadcopter is hovering, it's basically just slapping the air. It's not making much thrust. But if I pitch forward and begin flying forward, as I pitch forward and fly forward, the angle of attack on the prop changes. That air is now entering the prop from the top, and that higher pitch is now more effective at moving the air and generating thrust. So as a rule of thumb, the more your pitch angle, and then by extrapolation, the faster your cruise speed, the more your pitch angle, the more you benefit from a higher pitch prop. And the lower your pitch angle, the more you benefit from a lower pitch prop. A higher pitch prop is going to generate more thrust and consume more amps. That's another sort of rule of thumb. It's really difficult to optimize pitch without just trying different props and seeing how they perform, because there's so many variables, like the prop's mechanical efficiency, the motor's mechanical efficiency, the pitch angle at which you fly, and so forth. There's so many variables that it's really difficult to just say, here's the best pitch for you. Take another question from the Discord here. Always got to show love to the patrons. I have a heavy 460 gram, 3.5 inch Roma 3.5. Wow, 460 grams on a 3.5 inch. That is a chonker. It runs 6S 2650 kV. I replaced the all-in-one it came with a Speedy Bee stack due to consistent desyncs with any minor strike of the ground or tree, etc. The desyncs continued with the brand new stack. This is the only 3.5 inch I can find with this large of motors, and feels like this config is doomed. What motors do you have? You didn't say the size of your motors, Meme. Meme FPV, you didn't say what motor. He's typing right now in the Discord. What motors do you have on these 3.5 inch props? 2203.5? That is pretty big for a 3.5 inch prop, but not like insanely big. Have you tried changing timing on the ESC? I don't know why, but my earmuffs are pressing on my glasses in a weird way today, and it's bugging me. Yeah, have you played with the ESC settings? That would be, I'm going to assume you have. But yeah, increasing timing is always good for reducing desyncs if you're having them. The thing is, if you tap the ground and then you desync, to me that feels like a gyro issue, not an ESC issue. I don't know. You got a big capacitor on it? As long as it's 460 grams. It's pretty heavy. I wonder if the motors are like so torquey that when you tap the ground, they change speed and they make like a big voltage spike. It doesn't happen if I run it on 4S. I would try and like have a big honking capacitor and see if that fixes it. I would also try changing the timing. Change the timing to the highest value, whatever the largest number is, and see if that helps. Brandon Beans suggests you check that the motor screws are not touching the wires at all. It's always worth checking, yes. That would be something that would be consistent between the two ESCs, since you didn't change the motors or change the motor screws. Here's another Discord question from the patrons. On Betaflight 451 and a CATX Vista with WTF OS, I get a standard defen OSD instead of an HD OSD in the goggles. In Betaflight, it looks like HD. Bear in mind that you can set Betaflight to HD, and it'll show you an HD canvas, but that doesn't mean that the goggles know that you intend to do HD. Okay? So that doesn't mean much. I adjusted the canvas settings. Yes, that's just a Betaflight thing, though. So Betaflight is sending a high-definition canvas to the VTX, but that doesn't mean that the VTX is sending a high-definition canvas to the goggles, or the goggles are displaying a high-definition VTX. To me, I would update the version of WTFOS and update the MSP OSD plugin on the quadcopter. That's my guess as to where this is going wrong. And remember, it's not just the goggles, but the Vista itself needs an update. My guess is that this Vista has an old version of WTFOS and or an old version of the MSP OSD plugin, and it's not... There used to be a different way of doing the high-definition OSD. That's probably what I would do next. With the SpeedyBee Mario, we'll take one more from the Discord, and then I'm going to take some YouTube questions. Would the SpeedyBee Mario XH be a good first 5-inch frame to build and use in general? I found the SpeedyBee Mario frame to be a little fiddly to build. That's okay. I figured it out, and you'll probably figure it out too. But if you're saying, is this a good first frame? It's a good frame. It wouldn't be my pick for like your very first build because it's a little fiddly to fit everything in there. What I would say is make sure you're following along with the build tutorial of someone who's already figured out the ins and outs and will show you where everything goes and what to use. And don't try to improvise too much. Okay? But yeah, it's okay. iFlight uses the smaller anti-spark module in their Nosgal Eco. Would the 30 amp continuous current rating be an issue with a 55 amp ESC? Bryant, a 30 amp, there's no way a 30 amp continuous current rating is adequate for a 5-inch drone. Regardless of the ESC, like the ESC's current rating is the max that the ESC is rated for, but in reality, you typically don't pull that amount, and sometimes you exceed it for short bursts of time. But the ESC's current rating doesn't really tell us anything. Every 5-inch freestyle drone is going to pull more than 30 amps. So something isn't right here. Something isn't right here. We're missing some piece of information. They can't be shipping the Eco with a component with a anti-spark that has a 30 amp rating. It's just not. That doesn't track.
Like often happens, people say things without context. This is coming up because Madstick made a video on it.
Okay. Do you want to film it? Do you know? Did he like
5
look
hours
up?
old, so.
He looked up the spec sheet for this FET and decided that it had a 30 amp rating, and then made a video blasting them.
He's working on a dead FPV drone, and he's talking about the anti-spark filter. I don't know. I haven't watched it, but
Okay. Well, I see that there's 3 sizes of anti-spark. I don't know. I can't really comment. I will say, Madstech's a smart guy. He knows his stuff. Sometimes when he beats the drum, he's 100% right, and he's doing the right thing. And then sometimes when he beats the drum, later you're like, was that really that big a deal? Did you do the right thing? I don't want to watch the whole video. It's 15 minutes long, and we're not going to spend 15 minutes of my live stream watching it. What if I look at the transcript? Haha, show transcript. Spark filter. The one on this drone has failed. Look what's going on. We're talking about the fact that this device is sufficiently better to see if it's actually a good idea or not. Any spark. New Nazgul 3 prevents battery sparking. Base 03. Unreliable. Don't believe. This one has failed. I don't believe that I caused this, but it happened on the bench. I was loaded bench testing with the 03 ear unit. Ear unit. Picking up his accent. Caught up and down quite a few times on the bench. Those basics are I powered it down, and one time it wouldn't power back on again. Now just to demonstrate here. Take a 4S battery. 4S blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this anti-spark device failed. I mean, everything fails. iFlight sells tens of thousands of these bind and flies around the world. So clearly, like, I'm not saying nobody makes mistakes, but the odds that they're shipping these with a defective or under-spec'd anti-spark device that's going to fail and leave the drone dead, like, that would be a nightmare for them, and I just don't think they did it. So it's possible. I don't think it's likely. So he demonstrates what the hell. It would be helpful if he put freaking chapter titles so we could find out what the hell is going on.
Little IC here has failed. Now, there's no signs of burning or anything on it. Let's just get in a bit closer and have a look. It is labelled T118. No signs of burning or anything like that, but I guess it's failed. That's literally the only thing I can think of. That resistor there looks a little bit rough.
Mm-hmm. So what's the argument? They're under-spec'd and they're failing? I mean, as far as I can tell, what we've got here is that his failed, and that's about it.
I think it was this in combination with somebody looking at the Eco and said their Eco came with a lower anti-spark filter, and they're saying it was 30 amp.
I see, yeah, it's this comment.
But just to be clear, people, I think this is the same person who asked, but 55 amps is for all, like that's four times 55
yeah.
amps.
Yeah,
but
the ESC would be rated for...
Filter,
yeah.
But the anti-spark filter is on the XT60 connector, meaning it's the whole load.
Correct.
Like the load to the battery voltage. It seems unlikely to me that they'd be shipping... I think there's probably some confusion going on, is basically what we're saying.
There's no world in which they're shipping a Nazgul Eco with a 30 amp anti-spark filter. That is not possible. Either that spec is wrong, or the assumption about the anti-spark filter is wrong. The fuck is the thing? Here's the anti-spark filter. How do I even know which one it is? There's no world. So this is one. Could measure the dimensions because they do it by size. I could just look at which one it is. iFlight anti-spark filter. What are my choices? No, get the fuck off of here. Can I see the other side? Double. One gigantic FET on the 18 by 16. 30 by 16. Hello? Oh, come on. 25 by 18. 30 by 16. So the 30 by 16 and the 25 by 18. I see. 25 by 18. Do we only have one shot of the 25 by 18 and it's the rear? One ENK2. No. In, out. Be nice if I had a front and a back. 1ENK2. This is not the 1ENK2 FET. This is 1FRB4. So it looks like this is the 25 by 18. Let's just double check that. With the caliper, 25 by 18. Oh, 18 by 16. Damn. It's a shame. I was hoping the dimension would be unique. Come here, little booger. That's 18. And the next dimension is larger. So this is the 25 by 18, I'm pretty sure. Where's the amp rating? Version 2, 25 by 18. Compatible. Nautical Evoke. I mean, it clearly says that it's compatible with these 5-inch and 6-inch drones. So I don't know what the issue is. It clearly says that the V2 is compatible with multiple 5-inch drones. Right? Let's see. Continuous current. These specs are meaningless. I don't believe these specs. Okay, so I see that it says 30 amps here. I don't know where that number came from. That number is meaningless in this context. Like, is that the amp rating of the FET? Because the FET amp rating is heavily dependent on heat dissipation. Like, or that's a typo. I don't know. I don't know. But clearly, iFlight is shipping bazillions of these 5-inch drones around the world with this smoke stopper in it, and there's not like an epidemic of them falling out of the sky because the smoke stopper failed. But that's observably not happening, and iFlight as a company usually has their shit together enough to not make such a stupid mistake. So, this is a non-issue. MadsTech had one fail. Here's what happened. MadsTech had a failed smoke stopper and made a video about it, asking the question, hey, this is a single point of failure. Is this a good idea? What is, not smoke stopper, spark stopper. What is a spark stopper? Okay. Then somebody made a YouTube comment and went, hey, do you know that it's only got a 30 amp rating? And then people lost their freaking mind. A few people, probably not that many people. And the whole thing is a tempest in a teapot and is a waste of time. That's my opinion. Haven't said tempest in a teapot in a long time. Okay. Black Jungle says, zero idea about how the anti-spark filter works. Does load go through it after it's done its job? Black Jungle, the way it works is when you plug in, there's a FET, a big 300 amp rated FET. That FET is open. When you plug in, no current flows. But when you plug in, a wire goes to a second transistor, and that transistor then allows the big 300 amp FET to close and current to flow. Or open, whatever. And so basically, the main load current of the quadcopter doesn't flow until a very short time after the connection has been made, and therefore you don't get a spark because at the time the current flows, the connection is fully made. That's how it works. Is it dumb to comply with remote ID if you're flying without a spotter? What do you think is worse? This is a very, very significant philosophical question. Is it dumb to break two laws at once? The argument being that as long as you're breaking one law, who cares? You're non-compliant. You may as well break more laws. And the answer to that question depends a lot on whether breaking the second law makes you more likely to get in trouble for breaking the first law. I've seen these videos, these police videos, body cam, whatever, all over YouTube. A dude gets pulled over doing 100 miles an hour on the highway. Surprise! He's got a bunch of drugs in his car. Oh, how could this have happened? And the argument goes that if you're going to have a bunch of contraband in your car, then maybe you should drive the speed limit and try not to attract attention to yourself. That's a case where committing the second crime of speeding makes you a lot more likely to get in trouble for the much more serious crime. Now, that's arguably not true for remote ID and a spotter. Here's the thing. Almost all of the time, no one is going to notice if you don't follow the FAA regulations. Almost all of the time, no one's going to notice. No one's going to care. I mean, somewhere in an FAA office, there's a person who's like, oh, people are breaking the regulations. Oh, well, I got to stop this. Oh, these guys. So someone cares. But no one knows. The only time you're going to get in trouble for breaking the FAA regulations, generally speaking, is if you do something incredibly stupid or reckless. And then when that happens, they throw the book at you. So if they find that you're flying without a spotter, boom, violation. If they find that you're flying without remote ID, boom, violation. And you're going to get charged. I mean, worst case scenario, they don't come out of the gate throwing the book at you. But if if they decide to really bring the hammer down for whatever reason, they just fine you for every violation. That didn't have a Part 107, boom. Didn't file for Lance approval, boom. Whatever, everything you did wrong, they're gonna fine you for, and those fines stack up. So if you had remote ID and your drone was registered, but you didn't have a spotter, that's one less thing they can fine you for. And I think there's also an argument that if you do come to the FAA's notice and it seems like you were making a good faith effort to be in compliance, but you screwed up, that perhaps they would be more lenient than if they thought you were a scofflaw who was just, I don't know. So I would say generally, the thing is, there's an argument that complying with remote ID is not that hard. You buy a remote ID module, you stick it on the drone, you Velcro it on or whatever, and then you're compliant. So in terms of a cost-benefit analysis, maybe you're alone and you don't have a spotter, but you're like, here, I'll stick the remote ID module on, and then if I get caught, at least that's one fewer thing they can ding me for. I don't know. I think that some people would feel that argument was valid. I think for most people, it doesn't matter if you're compliant or not. Because for most people, especially if you're not doing any kind of commercial work, if you're just flying as a hobbyist, for most people, you will never encounter the FAA. And they will never know whether you're compliant or not. And of course, if you are one of the people who gets in trouble, then that's not really going to help you. But I think practically speaking, that's going to be true for most people.
Das has a follow-up, which he says, one of the points was the RID would attract their attention to detect you without a spotter. I would say that the range of RID is pretty short, and our drones are pretty loud. So unless you're trying something very small, which you wouldn't have to have remote ID on anyway, because it was sub 250, they're going to hear your drone and know you're there before they detect your RID signal.
Yeah, but this idea that you're out flying and the FAA comes up to you and is like, hey, buddy, do you have remote ID? That's the only time anything like that has ever happened has been literally one or two times in all of human history where FAA representatives showed up at a flight event and started checking paperwork. What's really going to happen is that you're going to frickin' land your drone at the Super Bowl because you're a dumbass, and then the cops are going to come get you, and then the FAA is going to throw the book at you. Or, I mean, the there's two ways. Blunty, tell me if I'm wrong about this, but my observation, there's two ways that people have gotten in trouble with the FAA so far. And one is that you do something colossally stupid with a drone, like you fly it into the airspace of an active airport, like a big airport, or you fly it over a stadium during a football game, something colossally stupid, or you are so egregiously obnoxious on YouTube that people start reporting you en masse, and then the FAA finally takes notice. Can you think of other examples where people have gotten fined by the FAA or gotten letters from the FAA that don't fit those two scenarios? Legitimately, I'm asking.
I don't think so, but I don't know. I mean, yeah. I just think the question is, if I ever have to care about it, is this a differentiating factor? And I think my thing is no, it's not a differentiating factor because they'll know you're there regardless.
Yeah, I agree.
Also, the other thing to say is, like, just remember, it's not just if you're flying without a spotter. It's if you're flying without a spotter, if you're flying without your trust test certification, if you're flying without a CBO and knowledge of the CBO's rules. Like, there's a list of things you have to have, right? So just make sure you know that all those things are pieces that are required and are as important as the others.
Yeah. There's a lot of pieces. And if someone were to come to the FAA's attention, Blunty, and you're not a lawyer, but maybe you have enough experience to be able to comment. If not, just say no comment. Like, would each of those be an individual violation? Have we seen when there have been actions against people? Like, I know they specifically ding people for flying without a 107. But then would they also $1,500 flying without a spotter, $1,500 no trust test, $1,500 not flying under a CBO's safety rules? Or would it all just be $1,500 one time not being compliant?
I could be wrong, but I don't believe that's how they do it. I think they just take the nastiest one and then nail you with that one. So, like, not having they basically find a way to make it a commercial thing and then fine you for not having a 107, which is the worst way to do it because then you're out of the
hobbyist.
Basically, 44809 is an exception from 107, so you're like saved from all the rules in 107. As soon as they can nail you on 107, then I think that's the path they typically take. If they can't do that, if they can't do that, I can't even think of a historical situation where, like, other than somebody flying over a football stadium, where they've gotten, fines like that for recreational activity.
Let me ask you this, and again, just speak from your experience, or tell me no comment. But the things that people have gotten fined for, like, I know several people who got FAA attention, and what they got them for was not having a 107. They found a way to argue that the flight was commercial. Legitimately, it might have been commercial for whatever reason, but they argued that the flight was commercial. The pilot should have had a 107, and they didn't. Or they violated a TFR, a flight restriction, like by flying over a stadium. When there's a flight restriction over every major sports game, and they flew. So they didn't then get them for, like, and you didn't register the drone, and you didn't have a 107, and you, or did they?
I'm sorry. What now? Well, I missed what the question was.
What have they dinged people for in the past? I know they've dinged people for not having a 107. I know they've dinged people for violating a TFR. Have you ever heard of anyone being dinged for not having a spotter or other such things?
No.
It's always the 107 or the TFR.
No, but I'm not 100% sure that they publish all those.
That's fair.
Like, because they have an officially published list, and I'm not sure it does all the civil infractions for all the rec. But I would also say I don't think those happen. Like that's why we don't see them, right? Like, I think we don't hear about them because they're very rare. Like, somebody mentioned they stacked them on Philly Drone Life, but those were separate events. So what we're asking is, do they stack for a single event? So, like, if I'm out flying, will they stack me for no trust, no CBO, no registration, no 107, et cetera, like 4 or 5 different fines at once? But the way they stacked up Philly Drone Life was one here, one the next day, one the next day, one this live stream, one this live stream, one this live stream, one this live stream, over a history of live streams, and then those were stacked up together. But they were separate events, just to be clear.
All right. All righty. Well, I think that's enough talking about that topic. FTO Media wants a recommendation for a DJI Goggles 3 adapter to get HDMI out of the G3. I saw your video on the Cosmo Streamer. No, Cosmo Streamer is the best option, period. Cosmo Streamer is the best option. For like, theoretically, the DJI Pro controller will do it, but for the money, you should just get Cosmo Streamer. That is the recommendation. What are your opinions on using 2507 1800 kV motors in a 5-inch frame? I think those are bigger motors than are really needed. I think you're wasting weight and you're not getting a benefit in terms of responsiveness or efficiency. Chris Rosser's thrust test data would back that up, although we have to acknowledge that thrust test data is not a perfect representation of what happens in flight. But my general opinion is that 2507 is too big for 5-inch props. It's a waste. 2208 is just about as big. 2208 or 2407 is like, even that's a little bit much. But maybe on like a really heavy drone, a 2208 or a 2407 makes sense on a 5-inch prop. But 2207, 2207.5 is really the sweet spot for a 5-inch prop most of the time. And I'm not saying that's 100% of the time, but in general, if you just ask me my opinion, that's my opinion. What's the best $100 to $200 FPV goggle? For analog, Fat Shark Scout is a solid choice. Not Fat Shark Scout, I'm sorry, Fat Shark Echo is a solid choice. For $200 digital, the Walksnail Goggles L is a solid choice. Oxtail Gravy, still asking about that Session 5 Gyroflow lens profile. Make your own, per the link I gave you earlier in the live stream. Shouldn't even have clicked on that one. We already answered it. Sorry. Just going on autopilot. Beeves channel says, I have an Expressillus quad and I periodically lose bind. That's weird and it shouldn't happen ever. You should never spontaneously lose bind. I would be tempted to try to figure out why you're losing bind. I don't know. The first thing I would do is I would update the firmware on the receiver and update the firmware on the module to the very latest ExpressLRS, whatever, 3.5 something, I think. I'm not sure. I would just do that because who knows, maybe it'll fix it. And if it keeps happening, I would replace the receiver and assume it was a hardware problem of some kind. Got a question here from Ivolonsky on the Discord. Oh, no, Justin Mueller. Good point, Justin Mueller. There is an ExpressLRS option that causes you to lose bind every time you power down. Why would you want that? Well, mostly you wouldn't, but there's a very rare edge case. The edge case that I was told was, imagine that you are working on a Cinelifter crew. There are 3 pilots, and you have a stable of 15 cinema drones, okay? And what you want is, you want a pilot to walk up to the shelf, grab a drone off the shelf, plug it in, bind it, and go fly it. And you never want them to have to hit the bind button or any bullshit like that. That pilot comes back, he puts the drone back on the shelf, he unplugs the battery, boom. The very next pilot to grab that drone off the shelf, plug it in, bind it real quick, go fly. You don't want a situation where somebody picks up a drone, turns on his controller, and it's bound to pilot number 2. Pilot number 2 is out there flying, and the drone, it arms and shit. Okay? So what you do is you enable this option in the receiver, and as soon as you unplug the battery, the drone loses bind, and will have to be rebound the next time. But of course, it powers up in bind mode, so it's easy to bind. That's very rare edge case. But here's the thing. He said it sometimes loses bind. If this was the option, it would always lose bind every time. So that's not what he said. I think. Ivolonsky says, my DJI 03 with my goggles too can keep strong at 1 kilometer only. I could manage only once to get 4 kilometers flying at 300 meters high. Why is this so far from the 10 or 20 kilometers? It's armed and using the FCC hack. I feel like at 300 meters, you need to go higher. I'm not a long distance pilot, but I know that the further out you are, the higher you need to go, and 300 meters isn't that high. So I think if you're flying at 100 meters, yeah, you can only go 1 kilometer. That's normal. What's the recommendation for the glide slope angle? There's a recommendation that for every kilometer out, you need to be so many meters high. Somebody who does long range in the chat, anybody know that number? Oh, here we go. RC groups. Altitude to distance ratio. 100 meters per 1 kilometer distance. Okay. $10 to 1 is conservative. 100 to 1. 300 meters above launch at 6.5 kilometers out is more than enough. That's still in the ballpark of what you're talking about. We don't know what your terrain is. So... $30 to 1 is a good ratio? Okay. 30 to 1? So if it's 30 to 1 at 300 meters times 30 divided by 1,000, you should be able to get about 9 kilometers. You only got 4 kilometers, which I think is still in the... Oh, you can't see that. I think that's still in the ballpark of real world. Maybe there was like a, terrain in the way or something. If the terrain is not perfectly flat, then this equation changes. I think you need to go higher. So, assuming that you're able to safely and legally fly above 400 meters, and I don't know, what I would do is I would fly out to whatever 1 kilometer, and then if you're starting to lose video, climb. And your video will get better. And then fly further. And when you start to lose video, climb. And eventually you'll hit a point where even though you're climbing, your video's not getting better. And that's the limit of your antenna. But if you're only at 300 meters at 4 kilometers out, I think we're still in the ballpark of where you're not high enough. But I say that as not a long-distance pilot. So take that with a grain of salt. Raivi wants to know, I just finished my AOS 7 V5. AOS 2807 motors, gem fans, Cinelifter 7-inch 3-blade props. Flew with some 6S 2P dark lithium batteries, great batteries. Changed to my 6S 1P tattoo to push it some. On a punch-out, the drone screamed like a pig being butchered. Yeah, I know that sound. That was prop deflection. What's happening is you're making higher RPMs with that high C-rated tattoo battery. And your prop is fluttering. And it makes this horrible screaming sound. The answer is you need a stiffer prop if you want to use that battery. That prop is not stiff enough for that battery. That's the answer. Switch props. Or don't raise the throttle that high. Do you think audio will come to digital FPV? I can't predict the future, Johnny, but there has been no indication that any digital system is interested in transmitting audio so far. So I can't predict the future, but if the past indicates the future, then the answer to that is no. Kid Photographer says, I have a problem flying with a Mavic near me. I use analog. What can I do to improve it? Buy a video transmitter that has low band support. Low band. These are frequencies down in the low, like 5.1 to 5.3 gigahertz, and they recently became legal to use in the United States, at least. If you have a VTX that supports low band and a receiver module that supports low band, you'll be away from the frequencies used by the Mavic, and you'll be completely immune, more or less. The GEP RC, there are some VTXs that support low band. The GEP RC Maton supports low band. The Maton VTX, 2.5 watts, 99% sure it supports low band. I'm like 99% sure it does. The pretty sure the TBS Unified DP supports low band. Pretty sure the Foxier... Any 4.9G, the Foxier Reaper Infinity, any 4.9G VTX will support low band. You need to be aware that the 4.9G frequencies are not legal to use. So I think they call that X band. I'm not sure, but if it supports 4.9G, it almost certainly also supports low band. So that's what I would do to get away from the Mavic, because that would work for me. Let's see here.
So that L band is legal?
Yeah, they recently opened up a couple channels in the L band. Notice that the AI, it didn't used to be legal. When did that happen? It really... I'm really confident that this happened. I'm not making this up. But I don't know if I'm going to be able to find documentation for it here on the live stream. What is L-band? What's the frequency? No. No. Yeah, because like HC0 supports low band. They wouldn't do that if it was not legal. They're pretty scrupulous about that. I mean, that's not my justification for it being legal. Oh, here we go. Not all channels are legal. Band L, 5333. There you go. Well, now we'll trust the AI overview, right? Uni devices can use 5150 to 5350 megahertz and 5470 to 5825. That's 2008. That's not right. I'm not going to solve this problem right here on stream. I'm sorry. Amendment of the Commission's rules. I really kind of want to. We amend Part 15 to make 300 megahertz of spectrum at 515 to 535 available for use of new called Uni. When's the date on this? Is this something old? 97. No, fuck that. I'm sorry. I can't do this right now. I gotta let it go. I'm pretty sure they've recently opened up some L-band channels, and that's why, for example, HD0 supports it, even though they always follow the law.
It looks kind of accurate. Matter had her put one in the chat there, in the YouTube chat. Is that the right article?
Which one? FCC approves Legato L-band application. 2020 would be the right time frame. Thank you, Matter Hacker. Well, I kind of want to know what are the rules, though, right? The bottom line is that we can do it now. 17 years. Jesus.
It actually looks like it's for like 1600 megahertz or something.
Yeah, that's not it. That's 1600
Okay.
megahertz. Okay, never mind. Bottom line, it is possible to fly legally in the low band now. The details I'm not sure about, and I can't prove it to you, but I'm pretty sure that I proved it to myself some time ago, and now I've lost the ability to reproduce that work. Okay. Fanta777, yes, I do support over emails. I have never stopped doing that. You're welcome to email me, and I will try to help you with your question. That goes for anybody. Oh my gosh, we have 20 minutes left in the stream, and there's some super chats left unanswered. Let's get another block of super chats done. Mr. Crocs, thank you for 70 South African Rand. I started with the Avata 2 and got the controller 3 to learn manual. I want to get an O3 unit, be able to put it in a drone and fly. I've been looking at the Pavo 2.0 Pro just for learning, or some 3 inches. I always recommend people start manual mode in the simulator. I know I'm beating a drum here, and people have heard me say this before. Don't buy a drone and try to fly it in acro mode first off without practicing in the sim first. Maybe you'll be great at it, but most people will immediately crash 100 times before they get one good flight in. So practice in the sim first, and if you're great at it right out of the gate, whoopity-doo, more power to you, pat yourself on the back, you're a very special snowflake. And then go fly a real drone with my blessing. No, L-band is 1 to 2 gigahertz. That's not in the FPV world. The FPV frequencies we call low band are in the 5.3 gigahertz frequency range. Don't look for L-band. We just call it low band or L-band, but that's in the FPV world and has no relationship to the rest of the RF world. Black Jungle, thank you for $5, and a big thank you and a big answer to you. Oh, no, you had a question. I thought you just wanted to give me $5. What's Black Jungle's question? I don't know. There's a million chats. Black Jungle, ask your question again. I know you're there. Yeah, Black Jungle. Easy fix. Lol. This is what Black Jungle wants me to comment on. She's done, buddy. Yeah, it's because you tried to run an all-in-one on a frickin' 10-inch drone. Is that a 10-inch, Black Jungle? Black Jungle, did you try to run an all-in-one on a 10-inch drone? What? 6-inch. Oh, okay. Why, Black Jungle? Why do you hate flight controllers this much? 1202 motors, 11,000 kV on 6-inch props. You're smarter than this. Are you just a masochist? You're definitely pushing the limits, man. That's for sure. Well done, sir.
You know who you're talking to? Of course he's
What's
a
that?
masochist.
Yeah.
Have you seen the other things he's produced?
I've seen them. It's bad. What are the best motors for a Meteor 85 2S Whoop? Ciotti. Meteor 85 2S. I'm gonna summon Aaron Ciotti, the Micro King, who will answer this question for you. And normally I would say, I'm going to give you this super chat. But I gave him a big super chat at the beginning of his last live stream, just because he's a helpful dude and I like him. And I got a big super chat, so I wanted to pass on the love. So I feel justified in asking this question now. I would still have asked it even if I hadn't super chatted him, but... Let's see if he answers. Watch the chat. He'll answer. $1103, $1104, or 1202 and 1203 and like 12,000-ish kV, says Ciotti. And I agree, because I don't know any better. June Loco says, Heads from Infinity Loops is the Micro King. June Loco, Ciotti has had the nickname the Micro King since Quad Camp in 2018. Now, you could argue that if Micro King were a title that was earned, then Heads from Infinity Loops deserves it more. But it's not. It's a nickname. And you can't take that nickname away from him. His nickname is the Micro King. Nothing will change that. Duper, thank you for a $5 super chat. Thanks for replying to my message on Patreon. I got the Radio Master Pocket you suggested, and I'm goggle shopping now. Thanks for what you do. Thank you, Duper. Grasana says, I get yaw shake doing big tricks with my whoops, and a 5-inch is too big for my yard. What should I try flying to improve my skills? What about an open prop 2-inch like the Flywoo Baby Nano? You should be able to do acro, any kind of acro you want without like massive yaw shakes and stuff on something like the Flywoo Baby Nano 2, the 2-inch. Not the 1.6 inch, get the 2-inch. I think that would be my next step up to fly out in your yard to do acro without pissing off your neighbors. Thank you, Daffy's, for a $5 super chat. STV Drag 225. My drone exploded in midair this morning. I can't find it to see what happened. What do you think happened? Really? Thank you for a $5 super chat, but really? I don't know. A bird hit you. I have no idea. Your drone exploded in midair. What does exploded even mean? I have no idea, man. How am I supposed? That's. What do you think happened? It's not an answerable question. I don't even know what exploded means, and if I did know what exploded means, I couldn't possibly formulate a good guess as to what caused it. There's no information here to work off of. There's no post-mortem, there's no pictures, there's no parts, there's just a vague description of something that sort of happened. I don't know. Sorry, man. I got nothing. Greasy Official, thank you for a $1 super chat. Serene State of Being, thank you for a $10 super chat. A 3.5 inch that whistles on idle. Sounds like a flying whistle. It's probably the props making the whistle. Can you try different props? And can you look for anything that was close to the props that may be causing them to whistle? That's a tough one. Why are people doing 6S 3.5 inches? This is such a terrible idea. It's a bad idea. Are there what battery are you using? Like a 6S 350? Am I gonna change my mind about this a year from now and think I was dumb for saying that? I don't know.
The question is how much sag you get, right?
You don't.
Like if you're not sagging your 4S, then you don't need a 6S, right?
You don't get any sag on 4S. Yeah,
that's what I mean.
It's about heat. In my opinion, it's about heat dissipation. If you're pulling so many amps that your motors are heating up, causing your motors to become inefficient and make less power, you need higher voltage. And obviously that's relative, right? Because yes, if you're running 6S on 3.5 inch, you will make, if you're running 4S on 3.5 inch, as long as your motors are reasonably sized, you don't generate enough heat for it to really matter. But you would generate less heat on 6S. That's true. Well, you generate less heat on 8S. Why don't we go to 8S? There's a point of diminishing returns, and you sort of make a judgment call, and you go, that's the line. And I think on a 3.5 inch builds, I mean, on a 4 or a 5 inch build, yes, clearly 6S has an advantage. I think 3.5 inches on the edge of where it matters. But your batteries are so small. A 6S 650 milliamp hour, a 6S, those cells are so small that, like, I would rather have a 4S 850 than a 6S 650 or a 6S 500 or however the math works out. Because those larger cells, I think, are going to be better quality cells. And you already have enough voltage at 4S. But it's up to you. Obviously, it's up to you. It's obviously it's your props causing the whistle. That's my thought. And Ciati points out that yes, you're much more likely to smoke an ESC on 6S than 5 and 4S, especially in those little all-in-ones that are used on the 3.5 inches. Motor size for a 4S Pavo 2.0 Pro build. Well, the first thing I would do, Beta FPV ships it on an 1104. Right? 1104. Well, can we just use an 1104? Can we use what the manufacturer recommends? No? We got to be different? Okay. 1004. I don't know. Go slightly bigger. 1105. Yeah, not a very interesting answer, but that would probably be where I would start. Yeah, the thing is, when you're talking about something like the Pavo 2.0, it's a package. Beta FPV designed the package. If you like the package, start with the package. If you don't like the package, get a different package. The little micros like that are very integrated. And as you start to improvise, it's easy to like screw up the performance without really meaning to. So I would start with a Beta FPV Pavo 2.0 kit, and I would fly it, and I would see what I thought of it. And then if there were things about its performance I didn't like, maybe I would think about going to a higher KV motor or a bigger motor. But I would always start with the kit on a micro, because the manufacturer has put a lot of work into developing the kit, and chances are, it's not 100%, but chances are that that kit has a good balance of performance. Will the SpeedyBee F405 Mini flight controller with the Redux 32 F4 Nano ESC work and be good for a 5-inch racing build? That's a fantastic ESC, and I highly recommend it. And the SpeedyBee flight controller, sure. The thing is, on a racing build, the ESC is the most likely thing that you really were worried about dying. So if you get a bulletproof ESC, you have flexibility as to what flight controller you're going to use. That flight controller will work with that ESC, but you'll need to repin the wires going between them because the plug, I don't think, will work between them. Justin Mueller says that lower KV means more torque. That is not true. That is not true. It is a myth that lower KV motors make more torque. That is a myth. That is not borne out by experimental evidence, nor is it borne out, it's not borne out by experimental evidence. I'll say that for a fact.
Torque is entirely based on stator volume.
Torque is all else being equal, which is an important caveat. Because obviously, if you have motors with a bigger air gap, they're going to make less torque. If you have motors with different magnet strengths, different stator laminations, there are a lot of things that make torque. But the assumption that we make is that within the domain of FPV motors, all the manufacturers are more or less optimizing all of those things. And that assumption is generally true. There's some variation, yes, but that variation is within a relatively narrow range. And so, all else being equal, which in the world of FPV motors it usually is, more or less, the number one thing that determines torque is stator volume. Bigger volume motors will make more torque. Smaller volume motors make less torque. The shape of the motor, pancake motor versus tall, thin motor, nope. Doesn't. But tall, thin motors are more responsive. Yeah, but they don't make more torque. And the KV of the motor doesn't affect the torque. The KV relates to the torque constant. The torque constant is how much power is required to make a certain amount of torque. I think it's amps. It seems like it would be watts, but in my memory it's amps. So we'll set that aside. So as the motor attempts to make torque and rotate, how much current will it draw? I'm pretty sure it's current. For how many Newton meters of torque? And a higher KV motor draws more current to make the same amount of torque. And a lower KV motor needs less current to make the same amount of torque. Aha! So now you think to yourself, wait a minute. If the lower KV motor can make the same amount of torque with less current, what does that mean for the amount of torque it's actually going to make? If our power supply could supply an unlimited amount of current, there would be no difference in the torque made by a high kV versus a low kV motor. It wouldn't matter. But in reality, our power supply, our battery, cannot supply an unlimited amount of current. The more current we pull from it, the more the voltage sags. So what we see in the real world is that if we have a high kV motor, it will try to make a high kV motor will try to be more responsive and make more RPMs. And in order to do that, it has to make more torque, and it will pull current. And if that results in the voltage sagging, it will make less torque and less RPMs in the real world. And a low kV motor, when it tries to make torque, it will draw less current, and that may result in less voltage sag. And therefore, that may result in the real world in more RPMs, all else and more torque, all else being equal. The reality is very messy. It's very messy. We could have a battery that has a really good C rating, okay? In which case, the higher kV motor is going to be more responsive, make more RPMs, and yeah, it's going to draw a little more current, but it's still well within the battery's capabilities, and we're going to just see an improvement in performance overall. But when you say low kV makes more torque, high kV makes less torque, that's not true. It's oversimplified to the point of just being wrong, and we try to sort that out. And if you want more torque, you need a bigger motor. To a point. At a certain point, you have such a big motor that you have plenty of torque and you don't need more. As you go to a bigger motor, you get more responsiveness in the prop. But that plateaus off. Once you have a big enough motor, the prop is as responsive as it meaningfully can be, and adding a bigger motor doesn't make it more responsive. I don't have a specific prop to suggest for you in terms of your fluttering props. I don't have a specific suggestion. I would look for a stiffer prop. Probably go to a 2-blade, to be honest with you. I think you were using a 3-blade. Okay, we're caught up on the super chats. Brian Pickus, I really think that torque constant is kV per amp. I really think so. I don't know why I think that, but I really think it is. When I first learned about torque constant, I remembered that fact, and then I've repeated it so many times. That's the theme of today, is I remember something, but I can't prove it to you. Torque constant. There you go. KT is the torque produced divided by the armature current. It clearly says current and not watts, and not power. Torque constant is the relationship between the current flowing through the motor in amps. Maybe that's because the magnetic field strength is related to the amps and not the volts. I'll bet that's it. I think the magnetic field strength is related to the current and not the voltage. Obviously, the power matters somehow. I don't know where the power comes into it. Because I'm at the edge of my knowledge here. Yeah, the SI units for torque constant are Newton meters per ampere. So it's amps. There you go. All right. We are coming to the end of the live stream, guys. Aaron Ciotti is going to be streaming. And he's posting the link to his stream right here. If I didn't get to your question, and there were many that I didn't get to, go ahead and email me, jb@joshuabardwell.com, and I'll do my best to help you out in email. Picking up here with Sartorial Grunt. I reflashed WTFOS, reinstalled the OSD plugin, still no luck. I tried reflashing Betaflight. I get OSD, just not the HD OSD. That should be automatic, though. The WTFOS should just be able to tell that you're doing high definition OSD. As far as your custom font not loading, I can't speak to that. I'm not sure why that's not working. Are you on Betaflight? What version of Betaflight are you on?
451. That was on his first question.
Damn. Try 450. You never know. Thank you for remembering that, Plenty. Let's see here. What remote ID module should I buy? If I had to pick one right now, it would be this one. Remote ID. We all hate it, and we wish it didn't exist. But some of us, you need to go look at this video, the Ruco R111 remote ID module, and it's cheap, and you just stick it to your drone and you're compliant, and that would be the one I'd pick.
There's also a bunch of clones of it, so sometimes it looks like there's 4 or 5, 6 of the same one, different names. They're Ruco and some different numbers and letter combinations. All of them are approved. There's a bunch of approvals on the FAA website. You can always go double check. But if you go to Amazon, sometimes some of them are on sale. I've seen one, I think, as low as $25. So sometimes you can get
shocker.
Get a different named one, but they're all compliant. It seems like.
Yep. It's not like it doesn't do a couple things that you might want, but it's so inexpensive. It's kind of inconceivable how cheap it is. Best small radio with Express LRS that's under $150. Radio Master Pocket. There you go. Answer. Boom. All right, guys. That's going to do it. It's Aaron Ciotti. Have a good stream, man. We'll see you guys in the next one. Good night, everybody.
Bye.